Hello, and welcome to the slideshow presentation on graphic print production flow. Today we're just going to be looking at the big picture of graphic print production and all the little bits and pieces that go into it from start to finish, from concept to delivery. So obviously the first place we start at is the idea and concept stage. This is where the brainstorming sessions happen and the strategic work is done. So it involves you as a designer, but also involves your client or your boss. You may be working with art directors, creative directors, or other management that have the ideas on what are they trying to accomplish. Is it an ad that needs to reach 100,000 people? Is it a creative art book that is going to be sold in stores? Is it packaging? Is it something that's going to go on a food container? All sorts of things. So what is the work for? Why is it being produced? What are the goals? And from there you continue on and start sketching out ideas, coming up with thumbnail sketches and brainstorming ideas and snapshots and storyboards, anything to start getting the creative side going, and usually involves going back and getting it approved from the management or the art directors before moving into more of your role, which is taking that idea and actually creating it, being the designer. So stage 1 and 2 are all under the idea and concept phase. The next phase is the creative production. So here this is your main role, which is gathering the images and text and starting to produce the work. So as we'll see in a later slide, you're going to be gathering photographs, graphic designs, illustrations, maybe stock photos, maybe taking your own photos. You might have to retouch them and getting them prepared for print. You may have to organize and rename them. People might be sending you all sorts of files, PNG files and JPEG files and TIFF files, high quality files, low quality. So during this time of collecting, you need to organize, and it's wise to rename files so that you can understand what they are just from seeing the name of the file and not have to open it. You may need to sort for quality, reject files. You may have to do some touch-up, color correcting, etc. With Word files and text, you may have to do some proofreading. It depends on what the situation is. But essentially, you're going to be doing a lot of collection of materials. And so it's important to start filtering it and organizing it. Folder names and file names and quality checks. From there, you will start creating the layout and refining the work. So you'll have to know the sizes of the documents that you're producing for the project that it is, the type of printing that's going to be taking place, to know how to set up your files for that print. So this is the layout work, where you'll be working in InDesign and in Illustrator and taking all of the images and text and laying them out into the final files that you would send to the print production. So this is the majority of your work here in the creative production. The next phase is the industrial production. So this is where your creative work goes to be printed. And here is where we're going to focus a lot of our time and energy in class on the industrial production, on learning what is involved here, but also looking at the creative production and how to set up your files correctly to go through industrial production. So the first stage in industrial production, which is essentially a printing shop, a print plant, the first stage is pre-press. So pre-press has the function to prepare your artwork before it's printed. So anything that needs to be done to the artwork before it's printed happens in pre-press. And a lot has blurred over the years about what pre-press used to be and what tasks people used to do in pre-press. But essentially, the ultimate goal for pre-press is to create the printing plates. That's the last step, the last physical thing they create to deliver to the print. The press is the printing plate. And in order to create a printing plate, they have to impose your artwork, and we'll talk about that this quarter. And they also have to run it through the RIP, raster image processor. And before they can do imposition and the RIP, they need to pre-flight your document, which is doing quality checks on it. So there's quite a few stages in pre-press, and it's actually quite a fun job to work in. I've worked in it for years, and I really enjoyed it. And you get to dissect people's artwork, look for all the little problems that there might be. You get to communicate back with the designers and work on fixing those problems, and then prepare it to get printed, and then you hand it off to the press operator, who goes into the factory and prints it. So that is obviously the next step after pre-press is printing, or press. Goes to press, we would say. There's all sorts of different printing presses, and we will examine and look at them throughout this quarter and see when we would use certain types of printing and how to set up our files to go best to the different printing methods. After the material is printed, it then goes into the bindery in finishing. Bindery comes from the term of book binding books together, but it now really includes anything that happens to the printed material after it's been printed. So if it's being folded, cut, glued, trimmed, stapled, varnished, all sorts of things, anything that you could imagine, or that you might imagine and might need for your print project, goes into bindery. So bindery has become a term that just encompasses all the different things that you can do to printed material. And the bindery is a really fascinating place to work too, because if you like to solve puzzles and work on problems and be creative, designers come in with wanting things a certain way. It gets printed, but then how do they finish it into that folded, glued, varnished, glossy thing that it is? You look at something as simple as a pop-up book for a kid, and there's a lot of thought that has to go into that in a bindery. So that's the industrial production. You have printing is the center, and then you have pre-press, and then bindery and finishing after press. And that's the essence of the print production there. Later in the quarter we will be looking at all the different bindery operations and finishing options, and things that you may need to keep in mind when creating the artwork. Okay, and then the last phase is just the logistics of distribution. So how is this going to be shipped? Is it going to be picked up? Is it going to be put onto a truck and shipped across state lines? Is it a direct mailing? Do they need it shrink wrapped? Do they need it boxed? All the different options there are for shipping. And shipping costs can be pretty big. So that can affect the cost of the job itself. Shipping doesn't really have a huge impact on how you design your work, but it is just something to keep in mind when you are coming up, as you're part of the whole process. You're coming up with the ideas and what this project is. You just want to keep distribution and shipping in mind. Okay, so I'm going to go to the next slide here. Oh yeah, this one here, this slide is just focused. This is what we'll be focusing on in class, is the creative production and the industrial production. I am not going to be asking you for thumbnail sketches. I'm not going to be asking you to justify your designs or your strategic ideas on why you're designing what you are. I'm more focused on looking at your artwork from an industrial point of view and whether it is going to cause a problem in production or go through smoothly. So you can get your strategic and creative work from the design courses you're taking in the program here at Wacom. But for me, I'm looking at your production quality. Okay, so here I'm just going to look at this visually. I'm a visual person, and I imagine you are too, since we are in the visual communications program. Here we just have it laid out in diagram form of when you're gathering images and text, you will be gathering text from different sources. You'll have Word documents, RTF documents. Who knows? You can get all sorts of stuff. You may have to scan things. So we've got the scanner down here. Do you have to scan images? Do you have to scan text? Do you need to take your own photos? Do you need to go to a stock photo website or a CD to gather your images, to do image handling? Do you have an illustrator on your team, or are you the illustrator? You're going to create illustrations. And you can see for each vein of this diagram here, there's a proof that is produced. So a text proof there, illustration proof here, and an image proof. With these proofs, you are checking and hopefully getting approval to move forward with it. The image proofs are usually done on a nice high quality inkjet, large format inkjet printer that can simulate the best color quality. So an image proof, you're really looking for color quality that you want and image resolution, nice crisp, sharp, colorful images, if that's what you're looking for. And same with the illustration proof. You're looking for high resolution color proofs to move forward with that. And then after you've gathered all those, you do the layout. So you've got your text and your images, and you'll lay them out, and then we usually produce a layout proof. So here, this is usually a low resolution proof, might even be just black and white to save money, and that you're getting your color from the image proofs on the nice high quality color proofing material. But the layout proofs can be low resolution, and you're really looking for just layout issues. Is anything being cut off? Is the headline too close to the top of the page? Are the pages in order? Is something upside down, and so on. So you're just kind of looking at bigger layout issues, and it doesn't have to be as high quality and color. That way you can save a little money. So that was your work there as a designer, and then this feeds into the industrial production. And here we have pre-press. The first thing they do is they pre-flight your document, and then they make their own image proof, color image proof, and they usually can match that to their printing presses. So they're going to show you this proof, and it's going to represent what their printing press would reproduce your artwork as. And then there's an imposition proof, where they take your artwork and they put it on a sheet that's going to be made into a printing press, and then they make this little booklet or dummy to show that everything is going to print correctly. They put it on this cheap plotter material so they can save money, But the image and color proof up here is high quality, expensive printing materials. So usually just do your nice images up there, and you check your layout and imposition on the plotter proof. And we'll talk more about that later. But you can see just in pre-press there's the pre-flight and 2 proofing stations. So a lot of checking goes on in there. And these proofs you need to sign off on before they can be printed. So they'll contact you and they'll say, is this okay? Is this how you want it to go? This is what it's going to look like. And you say yes and you sign it, or you say no, I need to make changes and corrections. If you say yes, it moves on to the press. And here they've got your printing plate is made, and then the paper is put to the press, and they match it up, and they'll do a print make ready, they call it. So the press operator gets the printing press up to color, like the color's all running nicely, and he prints out one sheet and compares it to the proof that you signed off on and makes sure it matches as best that he can, and then moves forward with that. You can, as a designer, request to be there at the printing press when they start printing it so that you can see it and sign off on that. That's usually an additional charge, but it's possible to do that, and a lot of people do. After it's printed, it goes to the bindery, and here they'll put your work together as it's supposed to be, folded, or if it's a booklet, and they'll make a proof of that and check that it matches what was created back here in pre-press, the imposition proof. And if it matches, then they'll go through and run the job, and you have your finished work. So you can see the large picture here of the flow of all the work that is put into it by all the different people. So that's many hours and a lot of different people. And one key thing I'd like you to take from this is the importance of proofing. That the earlier on in the stage that you proof and correct errors, the cheaper the errors are. The farther on you go in this stage, anywhere you catch an error, it gets more and more expensive the closer you get done to being finished. And that makes a lot of sense. So you've got, if it's on press and you find an error on press and it needs to be corrected, well, it has to go all the way back to either layout or back to the image handling and be corrected and go through pre-press again and recreate plates and all of that time and materials to get it back onto press. So it's also, as you're going through the process and you do see an error on press, you have to ask, how important is that error? Can I live with that? Will my client live with it? Or is it so bad that I have to go back and get it fixed? I do have one anecdote about this, and that is from an experience I had as a yearbook sales representative. And I was doing a yearbook for Ferndale High School, and their school colors were blue and gold. And they had this really cool blue, shiny blue material for the cover of their yearbook. And we had done all the proofing and checking all the way through. The book was all printed, 280 pages, 900 copies. It was down at the bindery getting put together, and I asked the bindery person, as soon as that book is done, please send me one copy of the book before you ship it to the school. They had the book done about 10 days early, and he sends me the copy of the book. I open up the package, and there is the book with a purple cover. Anacortes, high school, or Nooksack. And I just about had a heart attack because it was supposed to be blue. And here it was, a week before they're supposed to pass these yearbooks out, and all the yearbooks have a purple cover instead of a blue cover. And that is no small mistake. That was a huge, huge error. So we had to redo the covers on the books, basically. We were able to save all the printing from the inside, but we could cut off the covers, They could rebuild the covers and put them back on. The book was shipped about 4 or 5 days late, and it was the fault of the bindery, so it wasn't any fault on my part as the sales representative or the school's part. It was all the bindery's fault. They had they wrote down the wrong part number for the cover material, and they got the wrong color. Something as simple as writing the wrong number leading to this huge error. And so the bindery had to pay for it. We gave the Ferndale High School a big break on their price because their book was shipped 4 days late. But it had to be done. So I just stress, even with the amount of proofing, things can still happen. But the more attention you pay towards proofing and checking for errors early on, the better off you'll be. So that's it for today. Thanks, and we'll talk to you later.